In the last episode of this series, I asked you to take a look at going up on your toes. To reiterate, we are not going up on the actual toes themselves. We're going up more on the metatarsal bones, not the phalanges. The goal was to not shove the front of the pelvis, the abdomen, or the lower ribs very far forward in order to achieve getting up on the toes, which if you think about it means not shoving your lower back forward as well. Today we'll look at a few things that can help us improve our ability to go up on our toes. While this is an interesting procedure to work with in general, our purpose is to gain skill in going up on the toes so that we can implement that in walking and improve how we walk. To begin with, it will be helpful if you have your arms out in front of you when you go up on your toes. You could put your hands on a wall, but I think holding a stick in both hands works best. Pulling the stick apart by using the direction to pull the tips of your elbows out and down can provide some additional help. This might sound funny. Wouldn't putting the weight of the arms forward encourage us to lean forward? Isn't that what we don't want? Here we must be precise in understanding what we want from this procedure. We don't want the mid-torso or the front of the pelvis to go very far forward as we go up on the toes. And so, we should be giving ourselves directions to pull the iliacs back and up, and the lower sternum back and up. However, we do not want the upper sternum to go back. If you examine how most people go up on their toes, they will tend to arch their back, pushing their midsection forward while retracting the upper end of their torso. This is the same thing we see in people when they're just standing. By forcing the arms out and forward with the stick, you want to hold the stick so that the tips of your elbows are forward of your body, you will be helping to keep the upper sternum forward, even as you pull the midsection back. The other thing to consider is if we're going to try to keep the weight of our pelvis and midsection back, we need to counterbalance that with some weight forward. The typical way of going up on the toes has a sort of opposite counterbalance, where the midsection goes forward and the upper torso and head go back. We want to use a more reasonable counterbalance, one where we maintain the lengthening of our back. If you have serious pain or other debilitation, you can grab a hold of something that is firmly attached to a wall or any kind of sturdy pole and use it to help you get up on your toes. There's a story of one of F.M. Alexander's relatives falling off a horse and getting injured. Alexander ultimately was able to help her fully recover her walking, and an intervention he used was having her go up on her toes while holding onto a mantle. He had her go up on her toes over and over again until she was crying. You don't have to go that far unless you want to. The next thing to consider is what's happening with your foot and ankle. For more in-depth information about this, you can watch the series I put out on the legs. But first, we want to place the feet so that the outsides of the feet point straight ahead, which means your toes will likely be closer to each other than what you're used to if you haven't used these ideas before. As we go up on the toes, in practice what we're doing is moving the instep, the point we have on the talus bone, forward and up. The inner 3 toes are connected to the talus bone, whereas the outer 2 toes are connected to the heel bone. So we want to have our weight on the inner 3 toes as we go up on the toes. We can even use the direction to lift the outer 2 toes off the ground as we go up on the inner toes. This will help prevent us from shifting our weight to the outside of the feet, where we can easily lose our balance. The next thing we can consider is screwing the ankle. Now I know I'm throwing a lot of ideas at you here if you haven't seen the series I put out on the legs. So if you're getting lost, watch through that series first. To screw the ankle means to rotate the outer malleolus forward and the inner malleolus back. The malleoluses being the big bumpy bones at the side of the ankles. The goal is to have the axis of the malleoluses pointing 90 degrees to forward. If you play with staying up on your toes, you will likely find that one or both ankles wants to unscrew, and you'll end up on the outside of that foot. You can do this procedure in front of a webcam, camera, or mirror to see this. If it occurs, don't fret, just use your directions. Screw that ankle, lift the outer toes, and see what happens. The last thing to consider here is that we don't want to bend the knees any significant amount. We want to keep our legs extended as we go up on our toes. While we can go very high up on our toes, to the point of even making the metatarsals nearly vertical, we don't need to go that high to walk. We only need a small amount of clearance to be able to swing our leg. But if you develop your ability to go up on your toes, even high up on your toes, that will make the smaller demand of going up on the toes to walk much easier. As you spend some time practicing going up on your toes, you will have the opportunity to see if you can move your torso straight forward to take a step. I already recommended trying this last episode, but now we have more parameters we can assess as we make this gesture. When your swinging foot lands on the ground, is your ankle still screwed? Is the outside of the foot still straight ahead? Is your lower back still back, or have you bent it forward? Using visual feedback from a webcam camera or mirror is the best way to answer these questions. If you observe yourself closely, you'll likely find that even when you don't intend to, you tend to lean towards the supporting leg when you move your torso forward. This is an interesting habit to interrogate, because like many habits, it stems from a subconscious conception. Most people, on some level, believe they have to shift their weight over their supporting leg in order to not fall. But is that the truth, or is that a feeling? And even if it is true for you now, will it stay true? Experiment a bit, then join me next episode, and we'll start stepping.